O'clock, it's 7:10. A woman from Tyneside told BBC Newcastle she's so concerned about safety in high-rise flats following the Grenfell Tower fire that she's moved her and her daughter out of a tower block.
Well, Diane Tate lived on the top floor of the Sycamore building in Newcastle with her 6-year-old, but says it wasn't safe and she wants the council to make big changes. We can chat to Diane now on BBC Newcastle. Good morning, Diane. Diane, why did you make that decision to move out then?
It just wasn't safe. There's been no testing on the cladding and the insulation, or the test results are being covered up, because I know you've got Tina in the studio. She said over 4 weeks ago that she was going to independently test that cladding and insulation. We rang up several times in the week following and they said the results weren't back yet. Since then, every phone call has been, we'll call you back. Every email has been completely ignored. Every tweet has been completely ignored. So I'm thinking those results are back and they're being covered up.
Right, well, we're going to chat, obviously, to Tina very shortly. Alfie will be talking to Tina. But Newcastle Council does say it carried out extensive tests on all high-rise buildings and the fire service has declared them all to be safe. But does that not put your mind at rest at all?
Not at all, because they said they would publish the report from the company and they have refused to. They won't even respond to residents' emails.
Right, well, obviously,
asking about those results, you get ignored.
Obviously, we're going to put that to Tina very shortly. Some of the safety measures that have been highlighted in the news today, Diane, are the possibility of introducing sprinkler systems, but we're hearing not all residents actually want that.
Well, I would like to point out that Your Homes Newcastle held those consultations during working hours and they got an average of 9 people per consultation attended. That is not representative of the thousands of residents in the tower blocks, and also they misled residents at those meetings. They told people that the sprinklers would go off and ruin their homes if they burnt their toast. That is simply not true. The sprinklers are triggered by 75-degree heat, and that was an outright lie to scare vulnerable people so that they didn't have to put their hands in their pockets.
Do you feel happier now that you have moved out, Diane?
I do, but I don't feel any happier about all the other families and elderly people, vulnerable people who live in those blocks. I feel really, really scared for them. I can see those tower blocks from my living room window, and I think about it every day, all the people I know living in them who Your Homes Newcastle just do not value.
Diane, in terms of timescales, obviously it isn't that long ago since the dreadful tragedy in Grenfell. Would it not be better for councils to wait and see exactly what the outcome of the Grenfell inquiry is, to see exactly what recommendations are made?
No, I don't think it would. Why do they need to know what happened in Grenfell to test the cladding and insulation on their own buildings?
Diane, thank you for your time. Diane Tate, who has moved out of a high-rise building in Newcastle.
And as we mentioned there, the issue of sprinklers has been raised again. A BBC investigation's found just 2% of tower blocks around the country have them, but the London Fire Chief says they should be mandatory. We found only 1 tower block out of 26 in Sunderland has sprinklers. In Gateshead, 1 has sprinklers out of 25. None of the 37 tower blocks in Newcastle have a full sprinkler system. Tina Drury is Managing Director of Your Homes Newcastle. Thanks for joining us in the studio. Some hefty accusations there we've got to deal with. You heard from Diane there. First of all, you're not responding. You're not responding to emails. You're not responding to phone calls. They feel like they're being ignored.
What I would say is, if I can just step back slightly to when the tragic events of Grenfell happened in June of this year. At that time, all local authorities and housing organisations who had high-rise blocks were requested to send in any samples of cladding that were used a material called aluminium composite material. We knew at that time that none of our tower blocks within Newcastle City Council area had ACM cladding. However, in an effort to reassure residents, we decided to send off that cladding to be tested, and it came back saying it was safe because it wasn't ACM. We relayed that information to the residents. We also then decided with Newcastle Newcastle City Council, because resident safety and the reassurance of residents is our utmost priority, that we would take core samples of all of the external render that was on our blocks as well. So we sent that off, and at the time we actually advised our residents we were doing so.
In what way? How did you communicate with them?
We sent a letter, we put it on Facebook, I did a video blog, we made it known to all of the residents. And at that time, we said to them we expected to have the results of that testing in mid-August, and we would come back to them at that time and tell them what the outcome of those results were.
So what?
Those results were.
So why do they feel you're not communicating with them? Why do they feel you're ignoring emails?
I don't feel that is actually the case, because we are regularly updating them. However,
on email? Direct letters?
Through Facebook, through direct letter, but more face-to-face contact. Diane talked about the consultation events. We carried out 18 consultation events.
Have you chatted to Diane before?
I've actually spoken to Diane, and I've spoken to a lot of other residents at the consultation events, and they took place at different times of the day and the evenings, so they weren't all during work times. And what people were telling us at that time was that they were concerned about the intrusive nature of retrofitting sprinklers to their homes, and that they didn't want that intrusive work carried out in their homes.
Well, let's talk about the sprinklers, because she was very concerned, saying that, well, let's ask that question to you. Can a toaster set off sprinklers?
It is highly unlikely, if likely at all. We know, and Diane's quite right in what she says, that a sprinkler system is usually activated when there is heat present.
Serious fire. Of
between 67 and 75 degrees Celsius. A toaster, burning toast in a toaster, wouldn't create that amount of heat.
Have enough people been consulted about the sprinklers?
We are continuing to consult with residents. That is part of our plan, because it's important to us that we understand what their concerns are and what their preferences are, and that they're actually given some choice and some say in this. So we are very clear. We want to listen to our residents and then respond accordingly.
And how do you make sure you get through to enough people in this consultation? Because that's got to be key.
Because actually we've carried out the consultation event, but in addition we are doing door knocking, and we have knocked on 4,000 doors, and we didn't get answers at all of those doors. So are we continuing to go back and speak to those people and making ourselves available for anybody who wants to talk to us?
And if the public inquiry into the Grenfell fire stated sprinklers should be fitted, what would you do?
If the outcome of the inquiry says that sprinklers should be fitted, and it is indeed made mandatory, then of course, without a shadow of a doubt, Newcastle City Council and Your Homes Newcastle would follow that recommendation.
Is it partly to do with money and cost?
No, that is not. We've always said that our priority is resident safety, and that is what comes first, and that's why we've carried out the consultation, so that we understand what it is that the residents want.
Thanks for coming in. That's Tina Drury, Managing Director of Your Homes Newcastle. In Sunderland, Gen 2 Group says it made a commitment in 2016 to install sprinklers in its 26 high-rise tower blocks as part of modernisation and refurbs. The first of these was installed. Clearly, we will need to await the outcome of the Grenfell Tower inquiry to see what lessons can be learned.
And Gateshead Council said it's also awaiting the outcome of the inquiry into Grenfell and will act accordingly. A spokesperson said, "We want to make sure whatever work we carry out is the right work."